All right, well, let's get started. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I wanted to show a little project I was working on called Get with Word. So let's get started. So let's start with a little GIF there. Doc with Get. Yeah. So, let's get into definitions here. So I think we know roughly what we're talking about here, at least a bit, but it's always good to go through the basics. So what is DOCX? So it's a format of documents that is very commonly used throughout the world right now. Basically, it's an open XML specification that Microsoft released after they released their doc specifications back in 2006. So the reason why they made DOCX was after they had released it, a bunch of other companies reverse engineered that engine and started making competitors. So DOCX is the de facto replacement for Doc because it's smaller, faster, it gives you higher image quality. It's the most dominant in the market right now. So for any sort of office usage, 36% of people are using DOCX and only 11% for Google Docs. So it's kind of a big deal. It's got many leather-bound books and street names after it. No, I'm kidding. All right. Now, what is Git? So I think most people in the room know what Git is, but it's always good to kind of go over why it is and why it's important. So Git came around sort of mid-2000s. I think it was like 2004, 2005, 2006, somewhere in there. It started being made. It's an open source project that's open for many people to use. It's different in the way that it's much more efficient and faster compared to other version control softwares like SVM or Mercurial, just because it takes snapshots. It doesn't save the entire thing. So between version 1 and version 2, all you're getting is just the delta of the two, not the entire thing. So that's why it's faster. 2019 report that Git is by far the dominant version control software on the market. 74% of companies use it in one form or another, be it GitLab, GitHub, or Bitbucket, which are sort of the big three in the market. And the other benefit of Git is it's got high integrity. So you can only add things to Git, you can't take away. So if you take something away, it's considered like an add. It's kind of counterintuitive that way, but that's one of the benefits, because everything is checksums, so that if anyone changes it, Git will know about it, essentially. You can check out the link at the bottom there to learn more about Git, but that's essentially what it is. So why do we want to diff with Git? Why don't we just want to have file systems and the good old put it in the file storage or Google Docs or something like that? So some benefits listed here. So you can more easily version control it with teams. So let's say you've got 3 people working on a document, or 10 people, or whatever. Especially in our use case where we're coding documents, there's a lot of people doing a lot of different things, and it's hard to understand what's accepted, what's not accepted. Other programs have done an okay job of it. So Word itself has inbuilt features. Google Docs has some features that allow you to version control, but nothing quite the same way that Git can do it, because as I'll get into here briefly, you can do a lot more. So the next biggest ability is your ability to introduce automation. So because it converts it to a markdown, you can lint it, you can put tests against it, you can deploy it. So fun stuff like that doesn't require a person necessarily to constantly keep up with these things. You can also do more input control. So who can merge what information into a doc, who's allowed to make these changes, that sort of thing. So you can have a lot more visibility on who and what they're doing. And finally, if you need to put that document somewhere, you can automate that deployment. So say, for example, in our case, we have template sets that we want to go out to certain white label clients. They can just go click the button instead of having to go to that site, upload it, deal with all the metadata, all that stuff. So by and large, it should save a lot of time. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
The linting and the test. Linting,
oh, yeah, sorry. So linting is the idea. You can kind of think of like putting your clothes in the dryer and getting all the linked crap out, right? It's that metaphor in terms of like text documents or anything like that is just putting it through some process in order to get all the garbage out. So one example would be like, oh, you should always use this sort of style of naming things, right? So let's say you're naming a variable, you want to keep it the same. So it looks like only one person wrote it rather than like 5 people. That makes it a lot easier and less prone to mistakes and errors.
So that's common that you guys are coding.
Yeah, exactly. So naming conventions, how we sort of structure things. So like, do we want to always put like spaces in between variables and what they're going to be equal to? It just makes it more readable.
Yeah.
Basically, the whole point of linting is to reduce errors. It's all about correctness. So being able to automate that is helpful, rather than having to rely on the humans to kind of go through the same sort of dry list of rules every time.
Yeah. So then the test specifically, is that something like, I could do a test on whether I have a matching closing bracket and opening tag, or is that outside of this one?
I would say that would fall more into linting.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so that would be a rule to like, oh, if you have an opening tag, then there should be some close somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Even though if you ran it on Athennian, it would. I don't actually know what it's still on. If it didn't have a closing tag, or what? Okay.
So would it be able to tell me where it's opening is missing and closing, or
potentially, yeah. I mean, we'd have to write some rules for it, but you would be able to, at least in a markdown sense, it would be able to highlight it for you.
Yeah, I didn't think of having that also included in the benefits of this. So that's good.
Yeah. Tests, they could be things like, I suppose in our case, if you had a master template, and you ran it against the DOCX merge workflow that it was linked to, the output should not require like another update or another commit. Should just be the same. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So some limitations. So you'll see shortly when I kind of walk through a demo that the context and the styling gets lost in the markup, so you won't be able to sort of see that difference. It's mostly on content. There's a bit of added overhead, so understanding like, okay, how do I install this tool? How do I manage the branches, that sort of thing? And then finally learning how Git works. So I think these are all fairly straightforward. It just requires a bit of time and just a bit of learning to get all that info. Yeah, just, and then just a bit of like learning on the side. Kind of understand like, oh yeah, okay, this is why it's structured this way. But yeah, time for a demo. So let's escape out of here.
Yeah, anyone on the group? Line?
I think so, yeah. We got a couple people. Morgan, I think Steph was on here earlier. But, yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and show what this full workflow looks like. So we pre-cooked this repository called DocAuto. It's got a little owl with a piece of paper on it. Just writing on it. I just overlaid that really quick before this presentation. Oh, too much. Something like that.
Wow.
There it is. Goes mobile, yeah. It's got a little piece of paper. Yeah. That's like that. All right, so let's pretend we have this here. Let's start off with like if we're a new person coming onto the team. So obviously, what I would do is I would go clone. I would open this up into source tree or on terminal, but for the most part on source tree, and I would go through that process to clone it to a repository on my laptop and be all hunky-dory. But since I've done that already, I won't go through that process now. But once it's on there, you'll have a little directory like this with some files and a setup file. So this is sort of where the guts of the logic live. Everything else is the actual template docs. So the only command that has to be run is the setup init file. So you just have to go to the directory and just go source setup init.sh, and that does, it will install a few things. So right now it's set up to work with Macs. So just make sure you have brew, make sure you have git. Then it'll install something called pandoc, which is sort of the heart of the Diff tool. So that will take in doc, two versions of a binary, and then spit out a .md markup file that will show you what the difference is. All right, it's probably going to ask me for my password, but thinking about it. Let's leave that. It's ready cooked. So not now. There we go. Okay. It just took a moment to catch up. That's fine. Oh, it's updating. That's why. Okay, cool. So basically what this does, it does a few things I can talk about briefly. So in the setup file, this init file installs brew, installs git, like I mentioned, installs pandoc. Then it's got a couple hook files it's going to put in the right spot. These hook files, as things are committed, it will automatically run the differ tool. So it doesn't actually require any active part on the coder's work to actually run this. It just does it. So these two files, pretty straightforward. Basically, it'll just say like, hey, do you have pandoc installed? Okay, cool, we can keep going. Okay, what's the files that you changed? Okay, I'm going to go through these files and create an MD file that shows like the markdown difference. And then I'm going to, after I do that in this post-commit hook, I'm just going to clear them out after it's committed, just to keep things tidy. So now that that's done, we'll go back to the browser and create a branch. So let's create a branch, and then I'll call it like I need this. And we'll copy that. So you can do it again through the source tree array or the terminal way. I'm just going to do the terminal because I don't want to do a source tree. All right, fine, I'll do it through here. So I have the branch now on my laptop, and now I can proceed to do whatever I want to do. So I want to mess with this document, so I'm going to open it up. This looks pretty plain. I don't think there's much in here, but do it. Help me stuff and things. And then I'll save that. I'm going to export it as a doc because I don't actually have doc Microsoft Word on here. Fat filling everything. Yeah, sure. We can give you a tag. Yeah. Yeah. Let's just make sure it goes in the right spot. Doc auto save, and then file. Let's export to Word. If you have Word, you don't have to do these couple steps here. This is just me not having Word on my laptop. Okay, let's also mess with this one here. This is a good example. This one actually has some stuff in it. So as you can see, I've done many important tasks on this document. So let's take away some stuff. Let's add a new thing like, he's actually signing this, So I'll save that file. Let's export this to, oopsies, wrong format. Export to Word. Export, yes, that's fine. Okay, so we have those on the local branch now, and what I can do is I can commit these. So this won't display because it's a binary, but once I commit and push, it will automatically create those. So I'm just going to get rid of those two extras. All right, so I made the changes. He. Okay. Let's push that up. Obviously, there's the source tree way, which is a little more visually appealing than this VS Code way I'm doing it now. But this is just for demo purposes. Okay, so now that's pushed up. What we should see now is if we go to the branch, there'll be a couple little markup files. There we are. So as you can see, I deleted that, which is gone now, and it's showing that I added that, and there's some other interesting bits here, but this over here or there. And then there's the other file that we changed as well. So yeah, just to finish off the example, we can make a little pull request, and this would be the other side benefit to how I was talking about the workflow. So in this case, if you were working on a large team, you didn't want just anyone making it into the repository, or you wanted someone else to actually see and know what was changed, you would put it through a pull request, which would enable people to obviously take a look and approve things and leave comments and stuff. So I added a super awesome line to these documents. Super legit. So we'll make that pull request. Which will bring up the files that we changed. Now Kenny can come in if he wanted to and say like, oh, this doesn't look good, or yeah, this is fine, and add his approval. So a little approve button there. And that's that. I think I have a merge button on it. Anyways, not a big deal. Oh, maybe, yeah. Or just trying to go direct. I can always update it, so edit, master. Let's add Kenny as a reviewer. Interesting. It's probably saying the same. But yeah, once it's in, it'll go to master, and that is that. All right. Any questions? Comments, concerns? If you go to Doc Auto, If you go to pull request, it should show up as an open pull request. Let's take a look here. Oh, okay, nice. Cool. Anyone want to be a guinea pig and try it out?
You want me to buy?
Sure. Someone's got their laptop here.
Actually, listen.
I already did this last week. So
Yeah. Fair enough. Cool. Well, if you guys think that's cool, yeah, absolutely.
What happens if, so when it gets to the point where that's actually going to a live environment,
Mhm.
what happens if someone edits the word online?
They won't adjust anything that's on the repo because so what's on the repo is completely separate from what's actually on the database. So if they edit that, if it was another deployment, it could potentially overwrite that, or it could just create another. It depends how we manage it, right? So we could have a rule that just creates a new file with like a version number on it. So instead of the template being adjusted, there would just be like a second one that would show up, something like that. I guess it depends on how we want to work that, though. How that workflow should
I
look.
think we have to create rules around that because, I'm nervous about someone changing it and then not working, and then us being confused to redeploy it.
Uh-huh.
So obviously, once we're deploying, we're going to costs.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking two options. Like one, we would create a lock feature where they can't edit the ones that we deploy. So like for all like the government forms or like documents that we think should be edited anyway, like we'll put in a lock feature. Or this is either handout or handout. They have the ability to duplicate it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because if they happen to edit it like on the site, then that could lead to not fun things.
But it's almost like they acknowledge that if they're making edits, that we won't overwrite it, but we're not going to make changes edits. Like if we update our version, then their version's not going to be updated.
Yeah, I totally agree. So I guess they're allowed to like, in Git terms, they're allowed to like fork off of it, but once they fork it, it's theirs to do.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
Just like we do with the data.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
You want to fuck it up, you do it.
That's
Your problem.
yeah. Cool. All right. Any other questions on all that?